All right. So let's talk about another change that's going to happen in 2015. And remember, this is like a huge change with a bunch of moving parts. So we got out of the way some of the ones that are really easy for us to implement and get you used to now, so that as we move forward, it's kind of building blocks to get where we're going. That's how anything should really go. Audit. Who loves audits? That's what I thought. All right, well, we want to make the audits a little bit easier because the number of people who don't comply because they're looking to not comply is much smaller than people think. There are not a bunch of tax cheats in the world. Granted, there are some bad ones that do. They're the ones that are on the news. Generally, people don't comply because they don't understand. Let's be frank. You're in a business doing what you're good at. If everybody was good at accounting, we would all be accountants. We aren't. So people who don't comply because they don't understand what's going on. We're going to try to make that easier, and the way we're going to try to make that easier is there's a general audit manual now. The Department of Revenue is the audit authority in the state of Arizona for transaction privilege tax, whether it's a program or non-program city, starting January 1st, 2015. That's it. We have a general audit manual that is our developed audit manual, that is the manual that every auditor is going to work by starting January 1st, 2015, whether they're employed by Avondale or the Department of Revenue. Same rules. Our audit manual is going to go out on the AZDOR website. My gosh, we're giving you our playbook? Yeah, if we're applying those rules to the way you should do it, shouldn't you know what the rules are? Fair is fair, right? In football, the rules are published. So this is fair. Here's something else. Recently, there was audit training conducted by the Department of Revenue, not just for our auditors. It was conducted in 4 locations throughout the state for every auditor, whether they've been there 5 minutes or 50 years, for every jurisdiction, whether they're on board with us in 2015 officially yet or not. They were all trained to our manual, all trained to the standards that we're all going to use going forward. And by the way, it's not just Department of Revenue standards. These cities got together with the Department of Revenue staff. There's been a lot of back and forth, and what we chose is a method of best practices. Sometimes our practice and their practice was different. It doesn't mean either was wrong. Maybe one works better for a certain industry. That's what we did. We're trying to make it best, not we're better than them or we're the big brother. Sometimes the cities have better ideas. Let's be honest. You know, outside the box, outside of Department of Revenue, things exist. So it's going to be a situation where we take both. Yes, sir.
Come and work for it files in multiple cities. And so if we've got an audit now, will the audit automatically cover all the cities? Will it be for the state plus all the cities we're filing in?
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned a minute ago, like Avondale might have their own auditor. Would that auditor then be auditing us for Mesa, Phoenix, and Scottsdale?
It is like this guy is reading my next slide. Yes. Yes. I swear I didn't plant him in the audience. Okay. There always was this thing, well, not always, since about, I'm going to say 1999, 2000, there was a multi-jurisdictional audit selection committee. And one of the things that the MJAC committee established was that if an auditor was in and looking at your books, the business could say, hey, could you just handle the audit for everything I do all at once? And they could elect to have all locales and jurisdictions audited together, or elect not to. What has happened is, in this process, an auditor comes out, you will be audited for everything all at once in that period, wherever it is. And auditors from the cities will still be able to recommend audits. Okay, we'll get there in a minute. The auditors attended 5 days of training. We now have standardized audit letters. The standardized audit letters aren't our letters. We actually collected a stack of every letter that all the auditors sent and looked them over. Some of them were pretty funny. In some of the smaller cities that did their own, the audit letter was the letterhead and sincerely so-and-so from the audit department. They actually hand input everything. Yeah, wow, that's a lot. So they're all standardized. One of the things that that does is it makes it so that if an auditor in one of these cities, like Avondale or Mesa or wherever, sees a business that they feel is only in their jurisdiction, like they only have City of Avondale business, they're one location, they'll contact the Department of Revenue at this hub group that we have, and they'll say, hey, we want to do an audit on this business right here. We think they're only in our jurisdiction. We'll look at everything and we'll say, they're also in Bullhead City, and they're also in Welton, and they're also in San Luis. How about you handle it all? And so then the auditor will contact that business and we'll handle it all. Get it all done at once, the same rules, the same everything. Okay? All right, so we're going to electronic audit files. This is like cool. I know it seems goofy, but it's cool. It used to be spreadsheets. The spreadsheets were printed out. The spreadsheets were on the auditor's computer himself, and then he printed them and they were in his files. If an auditor was a field auditor and he was out in the field a lot, it made it difficult if you called in and he was out in the field to get exact answers on what the audit was. And the supervisor didn't necessarily know because he had paper data that was being handled. Now it's all going to be electronic. It makes the audit process faster. It makes it faster for somebody to answer your questions. It makes it so that you can call in and talk to a different auditor who can pull up the same file on the computer and look and see. We have taken a step into this century. Paper is, and I'm not kidding, if you were ever on one of our audit floors, which you probably couldn't be unless you had a badge, but if you ever were, there were like all these file cabinets. And it was a big deal if an auditor ever moved somewhere because we had to get boxes and move all their files with them. Craziness. So this is going to be easier. There's going to be a new advanced Arizona tax calculator. It makes it easier to calculate and it's faster. The old version wasn't like super slow, but this one is faster. The license compliance group. You know, cities have license compliance groups. We have a license compliance group. Our group does things like goes out and canvasses. They go out and canvass different cities. They also go out and if there's like a big carnival or a big fair or like the Gem and Mineral Show or the State Fair for that example, they go there, they set up, they license all those businesses from out of state, and then they collect the tax at the end. That's what they do. Well, cities have compliance units as well. You might have heard of a compliance officer. They go around and they look at things like signage and all sorts of stuff. The other thing that they're going to be doing now is they're going to be helping coordinate the effort so that, let's say we don't get a renewal form from a business that we had that was reporting, we'll be able to give that information to a local compliance officer that currently works for one of the cities, and he'll be able to drive by and go, well, yeah, they're still in business. That's weird. And they'll go talk to them about what has changed. One of the questions I had at the beginning is where are things can be mailed? To a mailing address? Sometimes people forget to tell us when their mailing address changes. If we get mail that bounces back to us because there's been a mailing address change, we stop mailing stuff. Because if it's just going out and it's just coming back, what's the sense of mailing it? So it could be that the renewal form never got to them. Or it could be that it went to their mailing address and they haven't picked up mail at the post box in a while. That happens too. We have that happen a lot with P.O. boxes. Well, Mary's on vacation and she's the only one that has a key. Go to the front counter and ask them to give you your mail. It happens. So that's...